My name is Brent. I've been working in the film industry for about a decade building software for artists. QLineEdits are something that you're going to find in just about every interface. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you the most common features of using QLineEdits so you can get user input. Code and a full article of everything that I talk about is going to be linked down in the description. One thing before we move on, I'm using a virtual environment. If you haven't used a virtual environment before or you don't know what they are, please consider watching my tutorial that is linked above as well as down in the description. Now let's get to the code. We're going to begin with some starter code that just sets up a window and allows us to place some widgets on the screen. So let's take a look at that. Starting off at the top, we have a couple of imports, including some classes that we're going to need. And here we have a class for main window that inherits from QMainWindow. So basically we're creating our own main window. And in the init method, we just set the window title. We create a QVBox layout. If you don't know what layouts are, I'm going to cover them in a future video. If that video already exists, I'm going to have it linked above as well as down in the description. If not, consider subscribing and I will have it in the next couple of weeks. But all you really need to know is this layout just allows us to have a bunch of widgets on the screen that are stacked vertically, and that when the window expands and contracts, it acts like you would expect it to. Lastly, for this init method, we create a empty widget. We set the layout for that widget and then add it as the central widget for this window. This is all just so that we can have a nice layout when we add a bunch of widgets together. Going down here to the main, we've got a place where we create a Q application. We create a main window of the class that we created above. We show that window and then we execute the application. And then down here, we run main. And so that's the boilerplate or starter code that we're going to work with. Let's actually get to working with QLineEdits. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create the line edit after importing. So we need to go up here and add an import to QLineEdit. And then let's go to actually creating it. So we're going to do self.lineEdit1 is equal to QLineEdit. So that creates our line edit. And the next thing we need to do is add it to the window and the layout. So we do that by going main layout dot add widget, and then we're going to do self dot line edit 1. And that's all we need to add a line edit to the window. So let's go ahead and run it. All we need to do is run python main.py. And you can see here we have a window and we have a line edit. We can type whatever we want in it and it works. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add placeholder text. This text is the text that you see kind of in gray, usually in the back of a line edit, that tells the user what is expected for that line edit. So let's close this out and get back to the code. So all we have to do is we need to do self.lineEdit1.set placeholder text, and I'm going to put as the placeholder text enter text here. And if we go back and we run it, you can see here that we have placeholder text. It says enter text here. And you can see if you start typing, it clears away. And if you go back so that it's completely empty, it still says enter text here. So that's placeholder text. The next thing you're probably going to want to do is get text. So if we go back to the code, we're going to get the text. And the way that we're going to get the text is that when a user hits a push button, we are going to put the text in a label. I've covered labels and push buttons in previous tutorials. If you need a refresher, I'm going to put both of the videos up above as well as down below in the description. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import QPushButton and QLabel. QPushButton and QLabel. And then we're going to create a push button. So self.getButton is equal to QPushButton get text in line edit 1. So all we're doing is we're creating a QPush button and we're setting the text of the button to say get text in line edit 1. And then we can add that to the main layout so it shows up. Main layout.add widget. It's just like previously, self.getButton. Then we're going to create a callback function for that button. So self.getButton.clicked. So when the button is clicked, it is going to run the following thing. So clicked.connect, and then the function that we want it to call. So self.getButtonPress. So this is the name of the function that is called when the get button is clicked. And before we define that function, I'm going to quickly add a label down here. So we're going to say self.gotten text label is equal to Q label text gotten. So this creates a Q label that we're calling get gotten text, and it's going to have the text gotten in it. And so we're going to quickly add that to the interface as we have done with the other widgets. So we do main layout.add widget, and then we do self.gotten text label. So this adds the self.gotten text label to the main layout. Now let's get to the actual callback function for when this button is pressed. So we're going to go down here and we're going to define that function. So the function is called get button pressed. The name of this function doesn't have to be get button pressed. It can be whatever you want. You just need to pass it correctly here and then name it down here. Something quick to note is I don't have a pair of parentheses right after the self.getButtonPressed. We are passing the function. We're not running the function here. Get button pressed. Okay, fix that. Now let's define what this function actually does. What this function is going to do is it's going to get the text from the QLineEdit, and then we're going to set the label to that text. So what it's going to be is text is equal to self.lineEdit1.text. So this just gets the text from lineEdit1. And then we can set the label to this text. So self.gotten text label dot set text, and I'm going to do text gotten, and then we're going to do plus text. So we're going to have a couple of labels in here eventually, and so to make it clear which label is for the text that is gotten from the QLineEdit, we're going to add text gotten and then the text. And that's all we need. So let's show what this looks like. So if we clear and then we run this, you can see here that we have a window. We have the QLineEdit that we previously had, and then we have this button called Get Text in Line Edit 1, and then we have a label down here that says Text Gotten. And so we can type in here, hello world, We can type it whatever we want, but I'm just going to type hello world because that is a super common thing to type for a first program. And if we press this button, we should see this label be updated to say text gotten hello world. And that's what we have. So that is how you get the text from a QLineEdit. Another common thing that you may want to know how to do is setting the text in a QLineEdit. So let's go back to the code and do that. So if we go back here, so after we created that label and added it to the layout, we are going to create a button. And what that button is going to do is we're going to set the text for the QLineEdit to be cat, C-A-T. So we are going to first create a new button. And so we're going to say self dot set button is equal to Q push button. We're going to set press to set line edit 1 to cat. Let's fix my typo. So we're creating a Q push button that we're storing the variable set button, and that Q push button says press to set line edit 1 to cat. And like previously, we're going to add it to the main layout. Main layout dot add widget self dot set button. And then lastly, up here, we need to create another callback function. So we are going to do self dot set button dot clicked dot connect self dot set button pressed. So here we're just saying when the set button is clicked, run this function. And this function is set button pressed. And we haven't defined that function yet, so let's go ahead and do that. So down here, we're going to do def set button pressed. And this is where we set the line edit to the string cat. So we're going to do self dot line edit 1 dot set text, and we're going to set it to cat. And that's how you set the text for a line edit. So if we go to run it, you can see here we have a new button that says press to set line edit 1 to cat. And if we press that button, you can see here that the line edit was updated to say cat. We can keep pressing it and it's gonna keep setting it to cat. So even if I have a bunch of stuff in here and I just press it, it just clears it out and sets it to cat. So that's how you go about setting the text of a line edit. Sometimes you may find it useful to work with the text as it is being typed by the user. So we're going to look at a callback for that. So let's close this out and go back to the code. So going back up to where we previously left off, we're going to use something called the text edited callback. So this is going to be something like the push button where it has the clicked callback. We are going to have the QLineEdits text edited callback. And so this is what is called every time the text is changed by the user in that line edit. So to show off this callback, we are going to create a label and update that label every time the user changes the text within that QLineEdit. So let's create a new label. And so we're going to do self dot text edited label is equal to Q label. And then in that Q label, we're going to put text edited callback. So we're creating a Q label here that has the text edited callback in it. And then let's add that to the interface. So we're going to do main layout dot add widget self.text edited label. And then we're going to set up the callbacks. So self.lineEdit1 text edited connect, and then we're going to create a function down below, but eventually, and we need to pass to text edited that function that we're going to create. And so that function is going to be called self.line1 text edited. And so let's create that function that we just named. So we're going to go down here. We're going to create a new function called def line1 text edited. And the new thing about this callback function is that it takes a parameter. And that parameter we're going to call text. So this is going to be called every time the user edits the text, whether that's adding, removing, whatever, to that line edit. And it's going to pass us the text that is changed. So basically, it's going to pass us whatever is in that line edit at the end of that user doing a change. What we're going to do is we're going to update that label that we created with whatever the text is. And so that's going to end up being self.text edited label set text edit callback and plus text. So we are setting the text edited label to the string text edit callback plus the text. And so let's see how that works. So if we clear this and run it, you can see here that we have a new label that's called text edited callback. And so whenever we type in this QLineEdit, it's going to update that label. So if I type hello world, you can see here that the label is updated. And you can see here, this is called every time I make a change. So basically, anytime I run backspace, if I clear it out, whatever. And so it's whenever the user actually makes a change. And you'll find that I'm being very specific and saying whenever the user makes a change. Unfortunately, this callback does not run when you programmatically change what is in here. So what I mean is it's not the user updating this, it is the program updating this. So if the program goes ahead and sets the text in here, like with the button that we created previously, you can see here that this text edit callback won't update. So if I click this button, you can see here that the text is cat, and the label that we have for whenever text edit is called, or the text edit callback function is called, it's not being updated. So there is a separate callback that handles whether the user edits or if it's programmatically changed. And it's useful to know about both of them. So we're going to get into this second callback called text changed. And to show that in action, we are going to update the code to have another label that will update whenever the text change callback function is called. So let's close this out and go to the code. So I am going to copy and paste these top 3 lines that we have here, and we are going to create, basically we're doing very much the same thing, just using a different callback. So instead of text edited label, we're going to do text changed label, and we're going to update the labels to say text changed callback. And then we are going to make sure that this is the right button that we are giving to, or the correct label that we are setting in the layout for adding the widget. And then, so we are going to change the callback function. So this is going to be text change. and we are going to connect that to the line1 text changed function that we are going to write. So again, this just creates a text changed label. We are adding it to the layout, and we are creating a callback function down below, which we will get to in a moment, and we are setting the text changed callback function to be that function that we're just about to define. So let's define that function. So I'm actually just going to copy and paste this because it's going to be mostly the same code. So we are going to do text change, and then we are going to do the text changed label and set this to be text change callback. So again, we are just creating this line1 text changed callback function that we alluded to up above. It gets some text, so whenever text changed is called, it passes, it gives us some text, and then we are going to set the text of the text changed label to text changed callback plus text. So basically, we're just creating another label that is going to be updated whenever text changed is called. So if we go ahead and run that, you can see here that we have a second label down here. And so and that label is going to be updated whenever text changed is called. And so if we type hello world, you can see here that both the text edit callback function is being called and the label is being updated, as well as the text change callback. And so the difference you're going to see is when we press this button. This button programmatically changes what the text is instead of having the user enter it. And so when we hit this button, what we expect to happen is that we expect the text change callback to say cat right here, and we expect the text edit callback to stay as hello world. So if I press this button, yes, you can see here we get exactly that. The text change callback is called and the label is updated, but the text edit callback is not called. But you can see if we go ahead and update this, type whatever, it goes back to updating, and we can hit the button again, and once again, text edit is not updated where text changed is. And lastly, we're going to look at two more callback functions, and these are going to be for when a user is done with a line edit, and there's two different ways of detecting that. So let's go to the code, and I'm going to show you an example of those two callback functions. So we go back up to where we last left off. So we are going to have a new line edit and two new labels. We're going to use those line edit and two labels to show the difference between these two callback functions. The two callback functions are editing finished and return pressed. So the editing finished callback is called when the line edit loses focus. What that means is generally if the user clicks on a different line edit or item that can take focus. And the other callback function, return pressed, is, as you can guess, it is when the user presses the return button or the enter button. So let's see these two in action. I'm going to create a new line edit as well as two labels, and we're going to update the labels when each of the different actions are called. So let's get to it. So we're going to do self.lineEdit2 is equal to QLineEdit. We're going to do self.editing finished label is equal to QLabel. And then self.return pressed label is equal to QLabel. Then we're going to add these 3 items or 3 widgets to the main layout. So main layout.add widget self.lineEdit2 main layout.add widget self.editing finished label and main layout.add widget self.return pressed label. So we created the line edit and the 2 labels that we're going to update. We've added them to the main layout. And lastly, we need to set what the callback functions are for the 2 callbacks that we're going to be looking at. So self.lineEdit1 finished connect. We're going to connect it to a function that we're going to call self.line1 editing finished. And then we're going to do the other callback, which is self.lineEdit1 pressed connect self.line1 return pressed. So when editing finished, when its signal is sent, it's going to call the function line editing finished. And then when return is pressed and the return press signal is sent, then it will run line1 return press. So let's create those functions that are called. So it's going to be def line1 return pressed self, and then on self dot return press label dot set text return pressed, and then the second function def line1 editing finished self dot editing finished label dot set text editing finished. So these are the 2 functions that are called for the different callbacks. So when return pressed is called, or when the return press signal is sent, it will call this function, and thus will update the return pressed label to say return pressed. And then when the editing finished signal is sent, it will update the editing finished label and set text to editing finished. And so let's run them. I'm going to clear this out, and we are going to run Python main.py. You will notice here that we have another line edit here, and then we have space for 2 labels. And so if we type a bunch of stuff, let's type hello, and if I press return, you can see here that editing is finished is called and return pressed is called. So let's run this again, but this time I will type hello, and then instead of pressing enter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this other line edit so that the focus changes. And you can see here that the editing finished callback is called, but not the return pressed. So that's the difference between the 2 callbacks. The return press signal is sent and the callback is called only when return is hit, whereas editing finished is called if return is hit or if there's text within the line edit and the focus changes. And those are the most commonly used features of QLineEdit. Thank you for watching. If there's topics you would like me to cover in a future video, please put it down in the comments. I'm always open to new ideas. If you got value out of this video, please consider hitting the like button. And if you want to see more, please consider subscribing. And like all software made for movies, we test in production. Thank you, and I'll see you around.